Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Monday, March 7th, the fourth day of Adar Sheni. Okay, this Shabbos is going to be Parshas Zachor, and we're going to be reading that special maftir from Parshas Kiseitze, which talks about our mitzvah to erase the memory of Amalek. Everyone should try to get to Shul to hear this Parsha read this Shabbos. It is a biblical commandment, and everyone should try to be there in Shul to hear it. An interesting little halacha for you, and it is this. You will find that most shuls will not have a young man read Parshas Zachor for the shul. Typically, as soon as a boy is bar mitzvah, we let him be the Torah reader for the shul, and yet when it comes to Parshas Zachor, most shuls are not going to allow a 13-year-old boy to read Parshas Zachor to the shul. Even if it's his bar mitzvah, they might have someone else read Parshas Zachor and not have the boy read that. Why is that? Well, here's your answer. You see, when a boy turns 13, we are not really 100% certain that he is a man. We're not certain that his body has changed over physically enough for us to call him a man. We have the assumption of Rava that's mentioned in the Gemara, and we rely on this assumption that the boy has reached manhood, and therefore we allow him to do a lot of things like read Torah in the shul, be the chazan for us, and things like that. But Parshas Zachor is a step higher than that, and we won't allow it for Parshas Zachor. Why is Parshas Zachor a step higher? Because it is biblical. It's a biblical command, and it must be done by someone who is biblically commanded in that mitzvah. When we ask a boy to go up and read the Torah, generally he's fulfilling a rabbinic command, and he can do that because we have the assumption of Rava that the Gemara tells us about, and we assume that boys can do all of the regular things that they lead us in when they become a bar mitzvah. But when it comes to something like doing a biblical command, Parshas Zachor is a biblical command, we would rather have someone who we are more certain is a man, and we won't rely. This is what most poskim say. The Magen Avram says this. So you're probably wondering, so when is it safe? Like at 14, at age 15, at age 16? And the Magen Avram, believe it or not, says age 18. That's when we feel safe that the young man is a man, and then we can have him do things like read Parshas Zachor. Where else does this law turn up? You're probably wondering. This law also turns up for the blowing of the shofar. We would rather have a full-fledged grown-up blow the shofar for the shul on Rosh Hashanah, because that too is a biblical command. You might have this smart question for me, which is, why do we let a boy lead Zimun at benching when that is a biblical command? It says, V'achalta v'savata uveirachta, you should eat and you should be satisfied and you should bench. So that's a biblical command. So why are we allowing a boy to lead benching? The answer to that is rather simple, and that is that Zimun is rabbinic. That's the Rabbanan. And so we allow the boy to lead the Zimun, okay? But actually on biblical commands, like blowing the shofar, Parshas Zachor, I don't think you can have a 13-year-old write your tefillin for you. I don't even think he can write them for himself, because when he's 13 and he writes them for himself, you might say, well, if he's rabbinically commanded, then he's rabbinically putting on his tefillin. Yeah, but you see, if he writes them when he's 13 in a day, and he doesn't become a man till he's 18, let's say, then his tefillin were kind of like, what's he going to do? Rely on his tefillin after he's reached manhood, the ones that he wrote when he was only rabbinically commanded? So you get the point. Anything that smacks of a biblical command, we would rather leave that to someone who we're more certain is a man, and therefore most shuls, not all, but most shuls will be following the stricter rule, which is that a boy does not read Parshas Zachor for the shul. Thanks for logging on. Log on again tomorrow for more. Bye-bye.